Welcome to our channel. Today, we embark on a journey back in time to the haunting events of April 26, 1986, when the tranquility of the night was shattered by the Chernobyl disaster. Join us as we unravel the catastrophic chain of events that unfolded at Reactor Number 4 of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, forever changing the course of history. On the fateful night of April 26, 1986, at 1:23 a.m., an unprecedented event unfolded at Reactor Number 4 of the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant in the Soviet Union. The tranquility of the night was shattered as the reactor's lid began to violently shake, sending shockwaves throughout the entire structure. It became evident to the present workers that the nuclear reaction within the reactor had spiraled out of control. Realizing the imminent danger, swift action was imperative. One courageous worker acted decisively, swiftly reaching for the emergency shutdown button. This button was intended to deploy control rods into the reactor, effectively halting the unbridled reactions. However, the intended safety mechanism failed to function as anticipated. Upon pressing the emergency shutdown button, the control rods entered the reactor as designed. Unfortunately, instead of bringing the reactions to a halt, a colossal blast ensued. The consequences of this unforeseen explosion were catastrophic. Following the explosion, the reactor became a raging inferno, its flames consuming everything in their path. Within this conflagration, the hazardous radioactive material present within the reactor soared into the atmosphere, riding on the billows of smoke and flames. The magnitude of the released radioactive material in this catastrophic incident equaled that of 400 Hiroshima atomic bombs, solidifying its status as the worst nuclear disaster in the world. The far-reaching consequences of this disaster extended beyond the immediate vicinity of Ukraine, casting a shadow across Europe from Spain to Sweden. Even the United Kingdom experienced the unsettling phenomenon of radioactive rain. As the radioactive dust settled on the grassy hills, unsuspecting cows grazed on the contaminated vegetation. This, in turn, led to a spike in the radiation levels present in the milk produced by these cows. The repercussions of this contamination were profound, particularly on the health of the population. Thousands of children were afflicted with thyroid cancer as a direct result of consuming the tainted milk, marking a tragic and enduring legacy of the Chernobyl disaster. Welcome to this video, where we delve into the reasons behind the Chernobyl disaster, exploring its far-reaching effects worldwide. The incident unfolded near the Soviet Union, specifically at Reactor 4, which witnessed a catastrophic total meltdown. Described as an explosion at the Chernobyl power plant in Ukraine, the force of the blast was potent enough to obliterate the steel and concrete lid surrounding the reactor. Post-World War II, the Soviet Union heavily invested in nuclear power plants, with a significant focus on technological advancement. Among these endeavors was the construction of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in the early 1970s. Despite its name, the plant was not situated in the city of Chernobyl but rather approximately 16 kilometers away from this small city. Remarkably advanced for its time, the Chernobyl plant housed 4 nuclear reactors utilizing the RBMK-1000 design, a notable type of nuclear reactor in the Soviet Union. As we explore the events leading to the disaster, it becomes evident that the Chernobyl plant, despite its advancements, became the epicenter of one of the most devastating nuclear accidents in history. The operations of the initial 2 reactors commenced in 1977, followed by the third in 1981, and the fourth in 1983 at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The primary objective of these power plants was electricity generation, with each reactor capable of producing 1,000 megawatts. Together, the 4 reactors had the capacity to fulfill 10% of Ukraine's electricity demand, underscoring their substantial power. Turning our attention to the Chernobyl disaster, the tragic event occurred in Reactor Number 4 during a routine safety test. To comprehend the unfolding of that day, it's essential to grasp the fundamental workings of a nuclear reactor. In the context of electricity generation, a rotating wheel is a common denominator, requiring movement to generate kinetic energy. Various methods employ this principle. For instance, in hydroelectricity, falling water propels wheels to create energy, while wind energy utilizes turbine movement induced by the wind. In thermal power plants, powered by coal, the release of steam, generated by burning coal, sets the wheels in motion. Nuclear energy, too, operates on this principle, where steam propels the wheel. However, in nuclear energy, the water must be heated first, and this heating is achieved through nuclear reactions, distinguishing it from thermal energy, where coal serves as the heating source for water. As you observe the nuclear reactor, a prominent feature is the turbine set into motion by steam. This steam, crucial for energy generation, is a byproduct of the nuclear reactions heating up the water, which also functions as a coolant. Consistent water supply is imperative to prevent overheating around the reactor, necessitating an uninterrupted flow of water. At the Chernobyl plant, water was sourced from a nearby man-made water reserve, complemented by a neighboring river. The constant availability of water is maintained through water pumps that tirelessly push water into the pipes. However, the challenge arises in the event of a power cut. To ensure continuous operation of the water pumps, the Chernobyl plant was equipped with backup diesel generators. These generators were designed to provide uninterrupted electricity to the pumps, bridging the gap during power interruptions. However, there was a critical window of 1 to 2 minutes required to start these backup generators. During this brief period, an additional power source was crucial to guarantee the sustained operation of the water pumps. The architects of the Chernobyl reactor proposed a unique solution. The electricity needed for these critical initial minutes could be sourced from the nuclear reactor itself. The rationale was that the turbines, driven by steam, would still be in motion after a reactor shutdown, and the residual steam lasting for a brief period could provide sufficient power for the essential functions during the startup phase. So, my friends, in the early hours of April 26, the plant operators were conducting a crucial test. The objective was to determine whether, in the event of a power cut, the turbines could generate sufficient electricity to sustain the operation of the water pumps. This test had been attempted before, but it had never been successful in Reactor Number 4. The workers were optimistic that the test would finally succeed on this ill-fated night. The preceding day, on April 25, an attempt was made to conduct the test, but unforeseen circumstances prevented its execution. Consequently, the test was postponed by a day. The dedicated workers at the plant, deprived of a full night's sleep, commenced preparations for the test at 11:10 p.m. on April 25. To comprehend the subsequent events, it is necessary to delve briefly into the science of reactors. At the heart of nuclear reactors, the core, consists mainly of three components. Fuel rods, serving as nuclear fuel and instigating the nuclear reactions, are composed of uranium dioxide enriched with the uranium-235 isotope. Understanding the intricacies of nuclear reactions involves recognizing the elemental structure of atoms, which include electrons, protons, and neutrons. Elements may also have isotopes, variations that play a crucial role in the dynamics of nuclear reactions. Let's explore the element uranium, which boasts three isotopes: uranium-238, uranium-235, and uranium-234. Notably, within different isotopes, the number of protons remains constant, while the number of neutrons varies. Some rare isotopes of certain elements possess the ability to undergo nuclear fission reactions, a key process for generating nuclear energy. Uranium-235 is one such isotope of uranium that enables nuclear fission reactions, producing nuclear energy. Due to its inherent instability, uranium-235 undergoes spontaneous disintegration, releasing radiation. This disintegration can also be induced by a neutron collision. Both instances are categorized as nuclear fission reactions, where one atom splits into two, accompanied by the formation of additional neutrons. Simultaneously, kinetic energy is released, converting into thermal energy that propels the turbine. The surplus neutrons generated in this process initiate further collisions, setting off a chain reaction known as a nuclear chain reaction. To regulate and moderate this reaction, control rods made of boron carbide are employed. Boron, adept at absorbing neutrons, curtails the collision of extra neutrons with other atoms, thereby slowing down the speed of the nuclear fission reaction. Within the core of a nuclear reactor, control rods are inserted alongside fuel rods to manage and control the nuclear reaction. The extent to which control rods are inserted proportionately affects the speed of the reaction. Additionally, moderators play a crucial role. In the case of Chernobyl's RBMK-1000 reactors, graphite blocks served as moderators. Graphite slows down neutron energy, increasing the likelihood of neutron collisions with uranium atoms and consequently accelerating the reaction. While modern nuclear plants predominantly use water as a moderator, the RBMK-1000 reactors in Chernobyl utilized graphite. To summarize the science, envision a car on a road where the fuel rods of uranium represent the moving vehicle. The moderator acts as the gas pedal. The deeper it is inserted, the faster the reaction. Conversely, control rods function as brakes, slowing down the reaction. The aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster surpassed the devastation caused by the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Chernobyl disaster zone remains perilous, rendering it inaccessible to the general public due to its restricted status. In contrast, the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are inhabited by large populations. On the ill-fated night of April 26, workers at the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant were engaged in a test to reduce the plant's electricity output from 1,600 megawatts to 700 megawatts. However, when the workers inserted the control rods as part of the test, the power dropped even further, plummeting to an unexpected 30 megawatts. Perplexed by this outcome, the workers struggled to comprehend the cause. The root of the issue lay in the creation of a byproduct, xenon-135, during the nuclear fission reaction. Similar to boron, xenon-135 efficiently absorbed neutrons, acting as an effective brake on the reaction. Consequently, the electricity produced fell below the anticipated level. Ordinarily, xenon produced in a nuclear reaction burns out or decays within a few hours. In this instance, however, it accumulated in the reactor core due to the already low power output, leading to what is known as xenon poisoning. This accumulation hindered the reaction further. In response, Shift Supervisor Anatoly, observing the minimal electricity production, instructed the removal of some control rods at 1 a.m. on April 26, resulting in a power output of 200 megawatts. Yet, this was insufficient for the planned tests, as the goal was to achieve an output of 700 megawatts. Anatoly, seeking to expedite the reaction, ordered the removal of more control rods. Although a reactor typically houses 211 control rods, all but 8 were extracted, a clear violation of safety protocols stipulating a minimum of 15 control rods in the reactor at all times. This breach led to a sudden spike in power output at 1:19 a.m. when the control rods were hastily removed. The reaction intensified rapidly, causing the remaining water in the core to transform into steam. This situation also resulted in a continuous reduction in the water volume within the reactor core. It's essential to remember that water serves as the coolant in this context. An unfortunate positive feedback loop was initiated. As the water transformed into steam, its effectiveness as a coolant diminished, allowing the reaction to gain momentum. A notable contrast in modern-day nuclear reactors is the use of water as both a coolant and a moderator. This design ensures that a decrease in water volume would also reduce the moderator's presence, akin to lifting one's foot off the accelerator, creating a negative feedback loop. In the RBMK reactor at Chernobyl, graphite served as the moderator, and the rapid conversion of water into steam exacerbated the situation. Concurrently, the previously present xenon, which had been slowing down the reaction, burnt out as the reaction accelerated. With no more xenon to absorb neutrons, the stage was set for an extreme power surge, causing the nuclear reaction to escalate exponentially. The production of copious amounts of steam resulted in the containment structure's lid vibrating, sending shockwaves throughout the facility. In response to the escalating crisis, the workers recognized the need for an emergency stop and promptly pressed the emergency stop button at 1:23 a.m. This action aimed to reinsert the control rods into the reactor, intending to decelerate the reaction. At first glance, it appeared to be a logical step, analogous to slamming the brakes when a car is moving at high speed. However, a critical design flaw in this reactor pertained to the control rods. A control rod comprises two components. The primary part, made of boron, serves to slow down the reaction by absorbing neutrons. However, the tips of the control rods were constructed from graphite, the same substance used as a moderator to accelerate the reaction. When the emergency stop button was pressed, and the remaining control rods were inserted into the reactor, the graphite-tipped control rods triggered a catastrophic blast. This flaw in the design played a pivotal role in the unfolding tragedy at Chernobyl. The presence of graphite, designed to moderate the reaction, only exacerbated the already accelerating process. The reactor's power generation soared to an alarming 33,000 megawatts. The initial blast occurred 6 to 8 seconds after the emergency stop button was pressed, causing the reactor core to start melting. Within the next 2 to 3 seconds, a more powerful blast ensued, propelling the 1,000-ton lid atop the structure into the air. This second explosion resulted in the dispersion of radioactive material into the atmosphere. The catalyst for the second blast is attributed to the ignition of the graphite present in the reactor. The combustion of graphite intensified the devastation. 2 individuals lost their lives instantly, and amidst the chaos, more than 100 radioactive elements, along with 5% of the uranium fuel, 192 tons in total, were released into the atmosphere. By 1:26 a.m., the fire alarm had sounded, prompting the arrival of firefighters. Initially unaware of the severity of the situation, the firefighters, upon reaching the scene, treated it as a conventional fire, attempting to extinguish it with water. However, this fire, fueled by graphite, proved stubborn and persisted for over 10 days. To mitigate the spread of radiation, helicopters were deployed to drop thousands of tons of clay, sand, boron, and lead from the sky, a challenging task that required flying directly over the blaze. Tragically, one of the helicopters crashed during this perilous mission, resulting in the loss of 4 lives. The firefighters who bravely confronted the inferno experienced fatigue and nausea upon returning home, symptoms indicative of radiation sickness. The aftermath of the Chernobyl disaster unfolded as a devastating testament to the grave consequences of a nuclear catastrophe. Exposure to an extreme high dose of radiation brings forth symptoms that indicate imminent death within a few months. The insidious nature of radiation lies in its deadliness, with the severity increasing in direct proportion to the level of exposure. Unfortunately, approximately 28 firefighters succumbed to the effects within a few months of their heroic efforts. Those exposed to comparatively lower levels of radiation experienced death within a couple of years, while individuals with even lesser exposure developed diseases, such as cancer, within a decade. Returning to the crippled reactor, although the fire had been extinguished after 10 days, it continued to emit high levels of heat that defied control. This persistent heat caused the base of the reactor to crack, presenting a significant challenge. Compounding the issue was a water tank located beneath the reactor, filled with radioactive water. The potential danger lay in the reactor's high heat levels, which, upon contact with the water, could instantly convert it into steam. When water undergoes such rapid conversion to steam at elevated temperatures, the confined space often leads to an explosive release. The prospect of a third, larger explosion loomed, threatening to disperse even more radioactive material. The only means of averting this catastrophe was for someone to dive into the radioactive water tank and drain its contents from the reactor. The perilous task required a real-life hero to step forward. Diving into the radioactive water meant exposing oneself to a peril that could cast a shadow over the rest of one's life. The water held a radioactive danger that could lead to death within a few months or years. 3 individuals, the unsung heroes of this harrowing tale, took on this extraordinary risk. On May 4, 1986, equipped with basic diving gear, they descended into the radioactive water tank, navigating the darkness guided by a single lamp. Their mission was to locate and open the crucial valves that would drain the contaminated water. The significance of these 3 heroes cannot be overstated. Their courageous act potentially averted a third explosion that could have had catastrophic consequences, possibly claiming millions of lives. The aftermath of such an explosion could render the entire European continent uninhabitable for nearly 500,000 years. Remarkably, all 3 divers survived this perilous endeavor. Boris, one of the heroes, passed away in 2005 due to a heart attack, while Alexei and Valerie are still alive. With this immediate risk addressed, the focus shifted to cleaning up the radioactive waste. Initially, the Soviet Union utilized remote-controlled robots for this task, but they malfunctioned in proximity to the hazardous waste. Consequently, thousands of individuals, known as liquidators, were dispatched to manually clean up the area. Between 1986 and 1987, around 200,000 liquidators actively participated in the cleanup efforts. During the initial stages of extinguishing the fire caused by the explosion, the Soviet Union attempted to conceal the incident, given the ongoing Cold War. The government wished to shield the world from the severity of the events at Chernobyl. However, the radioactive dust dispersed far and wide, reaching as far as Sweden. The truth about the Chernobyl disaster could not be suppressed for long, ultimately emerging into the global consciousness. Swedish monitoring stations detected abnormally high levels of radioactivity, prompting an analysis of wind patterns that pinpointed the source. Faced with irrefutable evidence, the Soviet authorities, on April 28, 1986, reluctantly admitted to the occurrence of a disaster, 2 days after the actual event. However, the local populace residing near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant received information about the incident only after a considerable delay, contributing to criticisms aimed at the Soviet government. By May 2, 1986, a 30 km radius surrounding the nuclear power plant was designated as an exclusion zone, restricting access to scientists and government officials. To contain the radioactive waste, a structure known as the sarcophagus was hastily constructed by November 1986. This concrete and metal enclosure was a temporary measure and, after 28 years, displayed signs of rust and cracks. In response, the construction of the new safe confinement, a structure designed for the long term, commenced in 2010. Completed in 2019 at a cost of $3 billion, it is intended to secure the reactor for the next century. In 2018, the United Nations reported 20,000 cases of thyroid cancer in children under 18 who lived through the disaster. This was primarily attributed to radioactive dust settling on pasture grass consumed by cattle, leading to high levels of iodine-131 in their milk, ultimately causing thyroid cancer in children. Economically, the disaster cost the Soviet Union $235 billion, contributing to its political breakdown. The global scientific community responded with heightened research into nuclear safety, leading to the establishment of the World Association of Nuclear Operators in 1989. The association conducts safety checks on nuclear power plants worldwide and explores ways to enhance their safety. Despite high radiation levels, parts of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant operated until 2000 to meet Ukraine's power needs. The ongoing process of dismantling the station is expected to conclude by 2028. Approximately 2,400 people currently work at the plant, with reduced hours due to radiation exposure. The 30 km exclusion zone surrounding the plant has been abandoned by humans, allowing nature to reclaim the area. Though radiation has affected some animals, the absence of human presence has allowed thriving populations of wolves, deer, lynx, beavers, eagles, boars, and bears in the region. The Chernobyl disaster, the world's worst nuclear catastrophe, prompted global efforts towards nuclear safety, making it a pivotal event in history. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and stay tuned for future content. Thank you for watching.